Dogfights happen fast. They can be over in a matter of seconds. In this video, we'll go over 5 tips to save you some of those seconds. There are 3 switches we want to set up before going into combat. By default, these 3 switches are off in a ground start, but they're absolutely vital in a dogfight. The last thing you want is to be heads down in the cockpit chasing these 3 switches when there's a fast-moving bandit trying to kill you. Turn on your RWR azimuth indicator, your helmet sight symbology, and of course, your master arm. If you've ever gotten into a fight with any of these off, then you know what frustration feels like. So take care of it now. There are 3 controls we want to map to something easy to reach during combat. We'll go over how to use each of these later in this video, but for now I wanted to share which ones you need to map. First off is our uncage function. Pressing this once will release the seeker of our Sidewinder and let it track targets on its own. This will come in handy with fast-moving bandits. Next up is our 3-way switch with our dogfight and missile override modes. This switch is used to set our avionics into furball mode if we need it in a hurry. Activating either the dogfight or missile override function will override whatever avionics mode you currently have selected. Putting the switch back into the middle position returns you to your previous setup. Lastly, we want to map the cursor enable switch. This lets us switch between the 2 modes used by our Sidewinders. If a bandit jumps you while you're in the middle of a bombing run, you would have to take your eyes off the bandit to switch into the air-to-air master mode using the UFC. Thankfully, the designers of the F-16 thought of this scenario and provided us with a 3-way dogfight switch on our throttle. This switch lets us quickly override whatever we're doing and get straight into a setup made for dogfights. When you select dogfight mode on your 3-way thumb switch, you'll notice some changes in your HUD. In the lower left side of the HUD, you'll see the letters DGFT to indicate that you're in dogfight mode. You'll also see a half circle in the lower part of your HUD. Pushing your 3-way switch in the other direction places you in missile override mode. Just like dogfight mode, this setting brings some changes with it to our HUD and MFDs. In this case, we get HUD symbology for radar-guided missiles. If we have AIM-120s loaded, those will be made ready for use. If not, then the system will ready Sidewinders if we have any available. Because each override mode has a preference for a certain type of missile, you can actually use the 3-way switch to select what type of missile you want to fire next. In dogfight mode, you'll have your AIM-9 selected first. With the switch and missile override, you'll have AIM-120s readied if they're loaded on your plane. If you look in the center of the HUD, you'll see a diamond indicating the direction our Sidewinder seeker is looking. By default, the Sidewinder seeker is slaved to our radar, which is why it's facing straight ahead. You can tell it's slaved by the word slave in the right MFD. In this mode, the seeker will follow any targets we have locked. We can also put the Sidewinder in bore mode, which forces the seeker to follow the crosshair in our helmet sight. In this mode, we can look at a target, lock it, and then shoot it for a fast kill. You can switch between bore and slave mode by pressing the OSB next to the mode's name, or using the cursor enable button we mapped in tip number 2. The uncage switch is a handy tool we can use that leverages the speed of a computer to make tracking fast-moving bandits easier. To explain what I mean, let's take a look at how we track targets in a dogfight with the seeker caged. Our Sidewinder will let us know it's found a target with these tones. Since it's slaved to my helmet sight, it can easily lose that lock if I look away from the target. But once you uncage the seeker, the Sidewinder's computer brain takes over and sticks to the target for you. Just remember, one tap of the button uncages it, a second tap cages it. One of the best features of the F-16 is the HSD. At a glance, we can quickly see where our friends and where our enemies are at. You can quickly switch back and forth between your HSD and your store's management page by pressing right on the TMS switch. But there is one important caveat for this functionality. If you have either dogfight mode or missile override mode active, you're not going to be able to swap back and forth between those two screens. So if you need your HSD, make sure that dogfight switch is in the center position. Modern air combat is chaotic and moves fast. In this video, we went over 5 tips that will help you stay ahead of the fight. If you have any tips of your own, go ahead and share them, and thanks for watching.